Well, Happy New Year and good morning and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Texas Hill Country. My name is Beth Warren and I am the spiritual leader here at CSL, and I will be bringing you the lesson for today. And I love, Diana, this opening song that you played and sang for us, Stayed on Spirit by Ricky Byers. How perfect it is for us this morning, actually, because and I'm sorry that those of you that are not in attendance didn't get to hear it because we didn't start the recording until after the song was played. But I actually think that the lyrics could be a beautiful New Year's resolution for us. And I wake up each morning with my mind stayed on spirit, and I walk and I talk with my mind stayed on spirit. Great resolutions, I would say, aren't they? And well, then you're probably ready to start the new year with God, if we're saying those. So that is our lesson for today, starting the year with God. And it is our tradition, as Diana mentioned, to get back to the basics during the month of January and to recognize and reground in our fundamental science of mind tenets. And that is exactly what we're going to do this January in our own unique way, that is, because each week we will bring fresh eyes and a new perspective to our life-altering teachings. And somehow or another, maybe we'll just learn a little bit more each time. And while we will be looking at things with fresh eyes and from a new perspective this month, there are some things so basic, so fundamental, that there might not be a new perspective on them, but there's always a way to go to a deeper level. And that is what we will do today. So my invitation to you is to put fresh eyes on some things you just might have heard before. So there is one principle and presence in the universe, one cosmic reality, God, or whatever you want to call it, spirit, universe. But there is one principle and presence in the universe. And in New Thought, we don't get too hung up on labels, as you know. We realize that some people have negative feelings around the word God, and if that is the case for you, my heart goes out to you for whatever experience you had that created the way you feel. And I truly mean that. And I now, with the utmost love and respect for you, I invite you, get over it. Get over it. And now is the time to heal that. And will that bring you an entirely new and fresh perspective to your life starting today? So let's start the idea again. There is one principle and presence in the universe, one cosmic reality, God. All creation originates in this one source. God is, and God is all there is. And from this one infinite source flows the spiritual, mental, and physical universe. All life, all love, all law, all energy, all harmony, all being, all physical form or effect are contained within the one. This is a simple yet deeply profound concept, one that we can get and then forget, get and then forget, and get again and then forget again. And today I want us to get it again. Everything contained within the one, it's all God. There is one life, and this life is God. So if you're new to this way of thinking, or if you are in a moment of forgetting, this concept requires a shift in thinking because we may well have slipped into duality thinking. You know, God and what? God and the devil, God and evil, heaven and hell, God and anything else. But we don't believe that. We believe it's all God. So say this with me. It's all God. So what does that say about us? We are each a creation of God, made of the God substance, unique, individualized incarnations of spirit. This incarnated spirit is the essence of every human being. This essence is unique to each of us. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. It can never be lost or damaged or diminished or destroyed throughout our eternal journey. The spirit lives on. Now and forever, each of us is an expression of God, right where we are, despite our feelings of separation. This oneness is irrevocable and eternal. It is who we are. And this is what we teach in our Science of Mind Foundations class. You will hear it over and over again. And I like the idea when it says, despite our feelings of separation, this oneness is irrevocable and eternal. It is who we are. We have a phrase we often use here, which I also love. It's very simply, God in me, as me, is me. And you can say that with me as well. God in me, as me, is me. Another way of saying, I am. And because this is true, we matter. Each and every one of us matter. We're enough, not because of anything we've ever done or ever will do, but because the source of our identity is God. Or as Ernest Holmes, our founder, put it in the Declaration of Principle, the highest God and the innermost God is one God. And as Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, talks in his book on Talks on Truth, he said this way, I have proved to my own satisfaction that when Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you, he meant it literally and not figuratively. There is within everyone a place, a conscious sphere of mind having all the attractions described or imagined as belonging to heaven. My most exalted ideas of the joys of heaven never anticipated the ecstatic thrill that suffuses my whole being while I rest in spirit at this center within. It's all God, and I am one with it. And we do not believe in original sin. You're never going to hear me tell you that you are sinners, which perhaps you have heard from the pulpit in your past. I know the Catholic Church talks about original sin, but we don't see it as original. We don't see it in the same light as that. And I'm going to tell you a story about, there was a brand new minister that was at his church for the first time that he was going to give the sermon. And after it was over, a church member and a guest were talking. And the guest was asking, why did you ask the other preacher to resign? And the member replied, oh, he always preached that we were sinners, and if we didn't mend our ways, we'd all go straight to hell. And of course, the visitor was puzzled, and he said, well, that's just what this preacher said today, isn't it? Yes, it was, said the member. But the other preacher acted as if he were glad of it. But he was glad they were all doing that. But what I'm glad of is that instead of believing in original sin, we believe in original perfection our original innocence, because God is in me, as me, is me. And this is the nature of reality and is non-negotiable. It cannot be won or lost, bought or sold, nor is it a gift that God bestows upon someone who has followed the doctrine of a particular religion. It's simply the way it is. Spirit put the stamp of individuality upon itself and called it you. While we do not have the power to change our actual identity, we can change how we think about ourselves. One day we may think of ourselves as capable of dealing with life, and the next day incapable. But the truth is, regardless of appearance or how we feel, we are one with all the power in the universe and therefore always capable. These beautiful New Thought teachings then reveal the nature of reality and the part we play in it. They answer the age-old question, who am I? By telling us that we are conscious centers of divine intelligence. And as such, we have the ability to use our conscious minds to create desired experiences. And I love how Thomas Troward, one of the authors of the New Thought doctrine, put it in the Door Lectures. He wrote this: but all the time there has been no change in the universal spirit. The only change has been in the mental attitude of the individual. He has come into a new thought, a clearer perception of God. He has faced the questions: what is God? Where is God? How does God work? And he has found the answer in the apostolic statement that God is over all, through all, and in all. And he realizes that God is the root of his, the individual's, own being, ever present in him, ever working through him, and universally present around him. Our starting point then is to recognize that everyone matters, whether they know it or accept it. Everyone is enough because each person exists as an individualization of the creative power of the universe that we call God. A power that exists within the individual and yet transcends the individual. This great truth satisfies the soul because it takes us home to the very source of our being, God. In God, we are enough. And during one of his Sunday lectures, Ernest Holmes said this: many who have lost faith in God have, in this new manner of thinking, found what their souls had sought. The emphasis is instantly on God, ever present, ever available, and our ability to make ourselves receptive to the inflow of the divine spirit. In essence, this is the primal message of enlightened prophets of all ages, and this is the message of religious science. And I will add, all New Thought philosophies. This idea is beautifully illustrated in one of my favorite stories written by Jack Canfield in the first volume of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And it goes like this. In the late 1950s, a group of monks had in their monastery a giant clay Buddha. And the clay Buddha was enormous. It was said to be 10.5 feet tall and weighing approximately 2.5 tons. And in 1957, the monastery was being relocated. And so everything, including the giant Buddha, had to be moved. But when the crane began to lift the giant statue, the weight of it was so tremendous that it began to crack. And what's more, the rain started falling down, and the head monk, who was concerned about damage to the sacred Buddha, decided to lower the statue back to the ground and cover it with a large canvas tarp to protect it from the rain and try again to move it the next day. And later that evening, the head monk went out to the rain to check on the Buddha. And he shined his flashlight under the tarp to see if it was staying dry. And as the light reached a place where the Buddha had cracked, the monk noticed a little gleam shining back at him. And he thought, how strange. As he took a closer look at this gleam of light, he wondered if there might be something underneath the clay. And so he ran inside and got a chisel and hammer and began to chip away at the clay. As they knocked off the shreds of clay, the little gleam grew brighter and bigger. And many hours of labor went by before the monk stood face to face with an extraordinarily solid gold Buddha. Historians believe that several hundred years before the head monk's discovery, the Burmese army was about to invade Thailand. And the monks in the land at the time were realizing that their country would soon be attacked, covered their precious Buddha with an outer covering of clay in order to keep their treasure from being looted by the Burmese. Unfortunately, it appears that the Burmese slaughtered all the monks, and the true nature of the Buddha was buried with him until that day in 1957, when the Buddha was to be moved. And Jack Canfield wrote this: aren't we all like the clay Buddha, covered with a shell of hardness created out of fear, and yet underneath each of us is a golden Buddha, a golden Christ, a golden essence, which is our real self. Somewhere along the way, we began to cover up our golden essence, our natural selves, much like the monk with the hammer and chisel. Our task now is to discover our true essence once again. And let me leave you with a passage from Ernest Holmes' book entitled The Art of Living, which was formerly called This Thing Called Life. God is life, not some life, but all life. God is action, not some action, but all action. God is power, not some power, but all power. God is pure spirit, filling all space. And this is pure spirit animates our every act. There is a real you, which lives in a real God, and the two are one, and the two are one. So if we keep our minds stayed on these ideas, we will not only start the year with God, we will stay with God throughout all of 2022. And so it is.